Hey, what is going on, everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario, and this is going to be a solo topic episode of ModChat, and it's going to be an incredibly quick one here. We're just going to be getting into it here, because I have to say, I have been proven wrong, and I'm incredibly happy to say that here, because if you are not looking at the screen, I can at least explain this and read it out loud. Grimdoomer says here on Twitter, I know I said I retired from console hacking, but I got one more in me. An Xbox 360 Softmod is coming. No ETA yet. This will take time to finish. And he's got an 11-second video that we're going to check out right here. You can see this is his Xbox 360. He does have a hard drive hooked up on the side outside of the caddy here, but if we let it play, he turns on the system. Let's go ahead, wait a few seconds. We have two red lights showing up, and boom, we got coffee right there. Now, if you don't know why this is so exciting here, this here is a complete soft mod that works from cold boot for the Xbox 360, meaning that you can just do what is being shown right here. Once you have this set up, I would presume you don't have to open up the system in any way. You don't have to solder anything because that would be a hard mod, of course. But if this is going to be a complete soft mod, you can take a complete off-the-shelf Xbox 360, set this up, and then you can do exactly this. You don't have to set up things on a USB drive. You don't have to do anything with bad update unless it is being iterated in some way for this here. We do not know that. This is the information we know, and I'm going to share a few other tweets or posts here, but this is it. Cold boot, something that I and many other people, even I'm sure Grimdoomer himself, believe to be impossible, is going to be possible here. It seems like when the Xbox 360 is about 20 years old. So it's completely safe to say what we are witnessing here is the impossible happening and something that people have been waiting almost 20 years for. He has a follow-up here stating, I still can't believe this exploit chain works, and I also can't believe I spent 20 hours a day for the last 3 weeks straight working on this. I'm so tired, but seeing that coffee cup on screen was worth it. Now, I called out the hard drive because it is important to bring up some context clues here. A few days ago, this was 11 days before that video was posted, he ended up asking here, anyone know of a 2.5-inch SATA hard drive you can modify the firmware on? I need a hard drive I can make some modifications to for something I'm trying to exploit. And he later on had a screenshot here where he was reverse engineering this, and he said, well, getting the firmware wasn't too bad, but now I just need to figure out their hashing scheme, and I think I'll be all set. A week after that, he stated, after several days of trying to hack every hard drive I have, here's the result. Western Digital, I can read, write, flash image, and RAM. Wrote a tool to and repack the firmware image and a full IDA loader for it. Unfortunately, the code I want to modify is not in the firmware, but somewhere else. Following up, he states, I was able to get JTAG access, but can't debug MCU. Not sure why. Samsung SSDs, I can write the firmware image and wrote an IDA loader for it, but I haven't determined if the drives I have hashes signatures on the firmware. Waiting on parts to try JTAG debugging to figure that out. Hitachi Samsung hard drives, I can write the firmware image, but can't read it or find it online. And it uses a TSSOP chip I can't find the pinout for, so I can't dump it myself. I don't have any Seagates I'm willing to mess with. Gonna keep going once parts show up tomorrow. He had a follow-up asking, you ever debug a hard drive before? And you can see that's exactly what he's doing with not only this drive right here, where he's got several wires soldered up to it, but it looks like he's also got another board right here that he was working on. 2 days later, he posted up a couple of screenshots and he said, well, I got my custom code running on this Western Digital hard drive. Also did some debugging and found the lookup table for the vendor-specific commands. There's more than I thought. And it looks like right here he's bringing up the program WD Flash, so Western Digital Flash, and following that it looks like he's patching the hard drive itself with a httpatches.bin file. He's got some read times there, and then these are patched, and afterwards he has some modified read times, which look to be quite delayed. So essentially the first one was 47 milliseconds, the rest of them were 0 milliseconds, but it seems to be flipped where the first one here, once this has been patched, is 0 milliseconds, and then the rest of them have been delayed. So that's interesting to see that there is a intentional delay that's being done here. And that, of course, has finally led up to the video that ended up rolling out just a few hours ago, which is, again, this 11-second video showing, well, like I said with all those context clues, that's why the hard drive seems to be important. It seems to be hooked up right here, and I'm completely theorizing on this point, but again, taking context into account, it looks like this is going to be something related to having a customized or modified or hacked up hard drive firmware. Now, this is certainly not the first time we've seen modified hard drives on the Xbox 360. For those who do not know, if you want to run a third-party hard drive, really one that does not come from Microsoft, on the Xbox 360, you either need to typically hard mod it, or if you have a retail kernel, meaning it is not a RGH, a JTAG, and technically this would be bad update since it would be running a retail kernel, but I bring this up because typically to run a hard drive on an Xbox 360, it must be certified from Microsoft, meaning that it does have a Microsoft security sector on it. But what people figured out years ago was that there were older Western Digital hard drives, not solid states, they had to be hard drives typically manufactured prior to 2020, where you could actually dump the security sectors off of official Microsoft hard drives and you can flash them to Western Digital drives. The program was this one, HDD Hacker. However, Eaton, the creator of Fat Explorer, ended up creating recently Xbox 360 HDD Maker. Unfortunately, it does have the same limitations. You can see right here, it must be an older Western Digital drive, but this just allows you to do this here without going through HDD Hacker, which is nice because this way you could just do it within your operating system and within a nice UI as opposed to booting up in a, different specific way. But again, it does have this limitation here, even saying generally most Western Digital drives manufactured before 2020 should be supported. Now, I bring that up because yet again, having modified hard drive firmwares for Xbox 360 compatibility is nothing new. It's been around for years. But this is incredibly interesting to see, and yet again, something that we are seeing that was supposed to be impossible, but we're seeing it happen here. And this is something that even Grimdoomer himself here, who I would consider him an expert in Xbox 360 modifying and reverse engineering, thought to be impossible. Even with his most recent release being Bad Update, which in case you do not know, this here is a software-only hypervisor exploit which works on the latest dashboard for the Xbox 360. In short, all you need is a USB drive and you can get Homebrew running on your console. And while it's not a complete one-to-one feature set with something like a hard-modded system, you do have a lot of the same capabilities that you could do with a JTAG or RGH system. But he even states here, right here in the frequently asked questions, can this be turned into a soft mod? And he says here, no. The Xbox 360 boot chain is very secure with no attack surface to try and exploit. There will never exist a software-only boot-to-hack state exploit akin to a soft mod. But, well, I'm sure he was really happy to prove himself wrong here too. So I will say, for anybody out there who might be saying, well, you people, including myself, you people were saying that this was impossible, there was never going to be a soft mod, really, that's what we all believed, including the experts here. Because you got to keep in mind that last year he ended up showing Tony Hawk's Pro String copy, which I had covered before, at least here on ModChat. And this, in short, allowed you to use several Tony Hawk games across several different generations of consoles to load up software-only exploits and get into the land of homebrew. He did end up proving this using a copy of Tony Hawk's American Wasteland on the Xbox 360, only having a modified file on the hard drive. Now, from what I see, this had nothing to do with, security sectors or firmware on the hard drive or any of that. It was just taking a modified file and putting it onto the drive itself. However, you can see that he is showing this, but if you saw earlier in the video, this was covered on the Xbox 360, but it ended up using an already existing exploit, essentially, which is on a very old 4548 kernel, which it seemed like this was not going to be going further than this. I believe he even said in the video that he wasn't going to be working on this further, essentially. However, this year he did come back, essentially taking that same entry point from Tony Hawk's American Wasteland, and he was able to get the hypervisor exploited on the latest dashboard here. In his two-part write-up, one of them here being hacking the Xbox 360 hypervisor part 1 system overview, as well as another one here covering the bad update exploit itself. They are incredibly technical, incredibly impressive, but if you have some time, I would recommend giving these a read over on his site. This is all to say here that this has not been released yet. There is no ETA, as he says here, but this was incredibly exciting because I mean, people have been waiting for, like I said, about 20 years for an Xbox 360 softmod, and it looks like that's finally coming to fruition. And for people who might have been calling bad update a softmod, nope, it's not going to be that. It looks like this is going to be it here. Now, I've shared this, I've shared my excitement, I've shared some extra context on here as well too, and I feel like adding anything else would really just be kind of theorizing and adding more fuel to the fire on this here, but this is really just an incredibly exciting announcement and really a huge breakthrough, which is why I want to make a dedicated video and even episode of ModChat about this here. But if you want to follow more about this, I am going to be following this myself, and I'll update you all when I can. However, I will have Grimdoomer's Twitter, yeah, I'm still calling it Twitter, linked down below in the description of the video upload. If you want to give him a follow, he's going to be the best person to get the source from because, well, he is the source on this. And I'm also going to leave this link in the video description as well, because there's been many people in the comments on my videos that have covered, topics like this, or even developments that Grimdoomer has worked on, and people have said, where can I donate? How can I donate to this guy? Even some people wanted to incentivize and say, hey, I'd like to donate to this guy to get a soft mod working. And when I see a mention like that, I try to link his website here. So I'm going to link this directly, because there's been a lot of people who wanted to either incentivize or even thank him for his work here, and well, I will tell you all, respectfully, put your money where your mouth is. He's had this donation link on his site for years, so if you really want to show some appreciation, you know where to go. Either way, that is about it for this episode of ModChat here and this update. This here is just incredibly exciting, and yet again, we are seeing the impossible becoming possible and happening. It's awesome to see so far. By the way, I've mentioned this a few times, now I'm kind of doing this in the reverse order here, but in case you don't know, this is my podcast, ModChat, where I like to cover things that I find cool, interesting, sometimes new. This here is pretty bleeding edge here in terms of this was just announced a few hours ago. Usually the news is not going to be this fresh, I'm going to be honest with you, but this is incredibly exciting and I want to sit down and do this here. But this is a show I do where I cover things that I find cool or interesting, what have you, in the world of video game modding and console modding and all that fun stuff. It's available in a video visual version here on YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey, and since it is a podcast, you can also listen to it on most podcast providers. If you look up ModChat, all one word, on your favorite podcasting app, host, provider, or platform. It's not available on all of them, but it should be available on most of them. So if you want to check out more episodes, you all know where to go. But either way, a quick, solo, but incredibly exciting topic right here that I wanted to inform you all on, because this is big. This is this is unbelievable. You all are seeing it right here. It's been on loop. Either way, that's about it for this episode of ModChat. Let's do a keyword as well too. I was thinking of Grim, but since a lot of people probably reference that, let's use the word happy. If you're really happy to see this, if you're really happy for a upcoming soft mod for the Xbox 360, if you're happy you might not have to solder anymore, use the keyword happy in a comment on the video upload, and I'll know you made it to the end of this episode. Either way, that is about it for this episode of ModChat. Thank you all for listening and watching, and if you enjoyed it, a like would absolutely be appreciated. If you didn't like it, a dislike is fine as well too. But as I always say, this is Mr. Mario signing off. Thank you all for listening and watching, and until next time.